So I'm here today with a very interesting guest. I'm with Peter Simeonov from Smart Migrator, and these guys are doing something very interesting. So it basically what they solve is, if I put it simply, and I'm not going to butcher it. I'm just going to guys give you a little bit of an introduction. Essentially, they help to resolve and remove those biggest barriers to cloud adoption. And obviously, that can be coming from a couple of angles. That can be the cost that might be involved, that might be the complexity of that move. And Essentially, the team has provided or provides the first world's the first in the world, actually, fully automated cloud migration platform. Might be sounding abstract to some of you guys, so I really want to give Peter a chance to give us an idea of what Smart Migrator is all about and how they're helping businesses to move along into the cloud. So Peter, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Lucas. Great to be here. Thanks a lot.
Awesome. So maybe give us your own sort of little introduction about Smart Migrator. What is it all about?
Certainly. So Smart Migrator is a young startup based in London, in the UK. And we're all about enabling companies of any size to transition to cloud computing and benefit from the latest in innovation in the simplest, fastest, and most cost-effective way, really simplifying what traditionally has been seen by many as a very, very expensive, very complex, very painful process, and redistilling the years and years of experience of our team, who includes some of the most seasoned migration professionals in Europe and beyond, as well as industry best practices into a fully automated process that people down to the startups or SMEs, or even in the case of large enterprises, can provide a lot of value and simplicity to transition seamlessly to the cloud.
Super interesting. Could you give us, for the people who are listening in, could you give us a couple of examples? Like, what would be the types of cloud projects that Smart Migrator would be supporting? Like, what is a, typical task somebody would come to Smart Migrator and say, hey, we need help with this?
Yes. So it's important, I think, first to mention what we mean by cloud migration, because many people confuse it. The reality is nowadays, most of us use cloud services, what are also known as um, application as a service or software as a service. We're using one now. So many companies are using such services for communication, for collaboration, and many other reasons. However, when we talk about cloud migration, we are really talking about transitioning your existing IT infrastructure, whether that is servers that are supporting your business on-premise in a local server room, or maybe in a local data center, and transitioning that infrastructure to the public clouds, whether that's Amazon Web Services or Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, Oracle Cloud, all the big clouds, and some smaller ones as well. So when you look at transitioning to those clouds, for the numerous benefits that are well publicized, there is a big challenge, and the challenge involves the complexity. It is a very, very sophisticated niche field, and there are a lot of complications, a lot of specialist skill sets that are required. There are very, very few on a global scale professionals who have the capabilities and the experience. And typically they work at big consultancies. So companies like Accenture, like Deloitte, DXC Technology, Atos, Cognizant. These guys, the big boys as we call them, they all have the same thing in common. They focus on big enterprise clients. They want multi-million pound contracts. Yep. And that is a big problem for everybody else, because what if you are the average SME that has much more modest requirements? You're looking to benefit from the cloud. In most cases, you wouldn't have the in-house skills. You wouldn't have, unless you've got some really technical people and you're lucky to have somebody who's done migrations before, you're really struggling because you cannot afford the services of the big consultancies. Yeah. You cannot do it in-house. What are your options? You can try and look at freelancers. You can try and look at smaller boutique consultancies. And then you don't know if you've struck a good partner. You don't know what you're managing. So the risks really, really increase. Yep. Some have managed to succeed without big professional consultancies, but it typically has been a painful process for most. It's taken far longer than it should have, and quite expensive in the process as well, even for those who've migrated internally. So what we're doing with Smart Migrator is taking the experience of our migration experts in the team and really simplifying it for people so they can comprehend it. They can manage the process, have the first in the world in a box solution that they can understand, they can follow, and with basic system administration skills, they can actually manage and migrate the service to the cloud. So cloud migration is a very complex area, and there are many different approaches. We are starting with what is the simplest approach, which is known as a lift and shift. And it means essentially taking your servers with all the databases, all the applications, all the data that you have on them, and shifting them in the same way as they are in the cloud. Of course, looking at problems such as legacy applications, which are not ready for cloud, but anything which is, we can shift it straight to cloud. This is how most migrations, even for large enterprises nowadays, are happening. And that's because it's the most cost-effective way. Following that, what we do is we can actually step in, optimize all the cloud infrastructure to make sure that you're saving money, you've got security as best as possible, you've got resilience, so you have infrastructure that's replicated across multiple data centers in the cloud. So if one goes down, you're still up, your applications, your databases are still running. Something that a lot of SMEs do not have in place right now. And they're really risking not being able to operate if something happens with their IT systems. So we're really revolutionizing the process of migrating to the cloud from what traditionally has been very much a manually led process, a lot of heavy lifting, a lot of opportunities to make mistakes. And that's why they're known as such a painful process, because people make mistakes, even the best people in the big consultancies. Why do that when you can automate? It's not easy. For people that are using our platform, they think it's too easy to be true, but they don't know how much work and complex automation goes behind the scenes. So in a nutshell, that's what we're doing. We are democratizing the cloud, the journey to the cloud for companies of any size, and really provide a friendly team, an agile team that has the experience, but can provide a friendly service. We can support and take on any complex elements which the platform is limited to right now, but really be a guiding partner for companies without the red tape and without the hefty price tag.
Very cool. I mean, that I think summarizes this really well. I'm curious then though now, how does, those SMB businesses that you guys are working with, as an example, how would they hear about Smart Migrator? Like, what's the typical journey that somebody goes through in order to, get started? Or what are sort of the main acquisition channels that you guys are leveraging?
Sure, I think you've struck our biggest pain point that we had last year, because as any early stage startup, spreading the message, making people aware that what we're doing and that our platform and solution exists on the market is challenging. We're still a bootstrapping startup, so we are in the process of fundraising to scale our team and accelerate. So it has been difficult. It's a well-known fact across our industry that people have been looking for a solution like ours for some time. But for us, it's really being all about leveraging. How can we leverage the limited resources and funds we have and manpower to try and spread the message? So we've done a lot of work on social media, particularly LinkedIn, which is the #1 business-to-business platform. We've looked at our own connections and people who can introduce us to the right people in organizations. Overall, I can say that our focus for growth is on channel partnerships. This is undoubtedly, and it's been echoed by pretty much every single person we've spoken to. This is the way forward for us. It's the way to leverage our partners' reputation, their reputation, their sales teams, their history, and be a value-adding addition that can open a new revenue opportunity for them. Because this migration wave is only going to grow bigger. We're only in the infancy. It's taken 14 years since AWS introduced the cloud, and still only 4% of global IT spending is in the cloud. So we're still in the early days, despite all the noise. So I would say people definitely find us through social media. People find us through hearing from others about us. We've had very interesting conversations with big multinationals who have actually found us on Crunchbase.
Mm.
Very interesting. And we were invited last year to participate in a cloud challenge by one of the biggest telecommunications providers in Europe. That was very, very interesting and certainly a very big opportunity for us going forward.
Okay.
So really across digital channels primarily, as well as word of mouth, for sure.
What role would you say the website plays? We're talking a lot about the websites, obviously, in the Pathmark Presents podcast. Like, what role would you attribute to the website?
Our website is something which will be very, very key going forward. Right now, we haven't paid a lot of attention to the website yet. It's the current website is something we did in-house.
Mhm.
And once we are funded, we plan to completely rebrand and create a really, really unique website that has an immersive experience,
Mhm.
a simple experience, because we're all about simplicity, for people to really navigate and see how we can help their particular situation. So right now, I would say the website at the moment plays more of a supportive role.
Mhm.
So people that we get to connect with or introduce to, they'll look at a website. It's currently a one-page type website, which in a few minutes gives them an overall picture of who we are and what we're doing.
Mhm.
Uh, but it's one area that we'll be paying a lot of focus lately in the future. I mean, so yeah.
Very good. Super interesting. Um, let's coming back to your services, right? Like, what would you say is sort of the main, just to summarize it in a very succinct way for the listeners, what is the main competitive advantage when going with a solution like Smart Migrator? Like, what's sort of that one little thing or that one big thing that is different when they go with you guys?
Sure. The biggest advantage we have is that we have essentially the first in-a-box solution that people can use to migrate from start to end. There are various tools on the marketplace for various purposes. For
Mhm.
example, data migration, um, discovery of the current infrastructure, which is an element before at the start of the process.
Mhm.
But there are a lot of missing links in between where advanced skill set and experience is needed. For example, architecting the solution and the infrastructure in the cloud. It needs advanced cloud expertise. How to analyze the infrastructure. Again, it needs very advanced skills. So what we're doing is we are sort of the glue of all the processes because we also use external products, external tools in our process. But we combine all the elements together into very advanced automation and a user experience that people find simple and enjoyable. Um, and in the process, because of all of this, it provides tremendous acceleration to the delivery. So we're talking 6 to 10 times faster than any other solution out there, which would typically be a consultancy type solution.
Yep.
But also the cost. We are cutting the cost between 3 and 10 times compared to consultancies. So instead of talking four figures per virtual machine to migrate, which typically and more, which would typically cost with consultancies.
Yep.
We cost talking hundreds. And of course, each project is individual depending on complications and complexities. Cost can vary dramatically, but we provide that dramatic cost reduction that really makes it affordable. And that's for us is one of the key things because yes, acceleration is great, but the big challenge globally is that SMEs simply cannot afford the migration, or even those that do, it puts a significant financial pressure on their business. Uh, so we're offering the next generation of how things should be, just like in other areas. I mean, robotic process automation is a vastly growing market. Everybody's trying to automate things. So why not migrations? And that's
Makes
what we're doing.
makes a lot of sense. Let's switch gears a little bit since we're slowly coming to an end of the interview. I would love to learn a little bit more about you, right? As a sort of a leader in the company, you sort of what I'm curious about is like what's the type of content that you consume? How do you educate yourself or how do you even filter, information that you spend your time on reading?
Well, it's been a challenge last year with COVID. But I enjoy reading a lot. I'm a big believer in learning. It's a never-ending process, and also in personal development. Because especially personal development, especially on the motivational psychological side, it has been a huge benefit to me. What I've learned over the years
Mhm.
during the stressful times that we're still in, still battling with the effects of COVID and on society. So I tend to dedicate some time in my schedule for reading and learning,
Hmm.
trying for sources that can distill information, where I can learn more for a shorter amount of time, because time is at a premium for everybody. So, but I'm on one hand, I'm learning professional skills. So cloud, I've always followed cloud, but since I got involved in Smart Migrator, and my co-founder is one of the leading experts in Europe in the field.
Hmm.
For me, it's really been about getting deeper into technically into the process of migrations and beyond migrations. So in one area, I've been educating myself on cloud, but also really taking time to balance it with social reading as well and interactions.
Hmm.
Uh, Recently joined Clubhouse as
Hmm.
well, so that's a new interesting platform that I'm exploring, and
Do you see an
thankful for being.
application for you guys there?
It's certainly a great area. I enjoy that it's a new way of communications, because sometimes you have enough text and reading,
Hmm.
and it's good to be able to join the room and just listen in conversation. Whether that's something professional, it could be something social. I think it's a great change from the daily norm.
Hmm.
But yeah, I take the opportunity to learn as much as possible whenever I can, for sure.
Very cool. I just have two quick questions actually left for the interview. Time flew by in the call. I'm curious, right? For you guys, like if there would be no boundaries in technology, right? That if you would sort of your visionary hat on for a little bit, what would be one thing that you would wanted to have fixed for the company today? One thing, if you with a finger snip could change, there's no boundaries in technology. What would you fix for your company?
I would say, good question. I would say a bit if there was a tool that I can get the best global minds and entrepreneurs who've got experience in our field and can add value,
Mhm.
and reach out through that source and bring it on board, it would have made our life a lot easier. Not just in respect to funding, fundraising, but in all areas that we've struggled over the last year. So maybe something for somebody to think about as an opportunity.
Very cool. And the very last question would be, if today would be your first day, you're working on Smart Migrator, what would be the one advice that you would give yourself?
I would say think over these big decisions that you're making rather than jumping into them,
Mhm.
because it's very easy to, when it's in the beginning and it's such a rush and so many things are happening, it's very easy to make wrong decisions. So really thinking about big decisions, taking the time to think about them, and also communicate with the team rather than just think on your own.
Here, I really appreciate that you took the time for Pathmonk Presents with us today.
Same here. Lovely to have to be on the show. Thanks, Lucas.